Good evening, welcome everyone. Sorry for the delay, we did just exit an executive session for a legal matter. So I will call the meeting to order for March 13th. The first items we have on the agenda today are public hearings for special amusement permit for the farm stand, a new liquor license for malt liquor and wine for, I'm sure I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Sulfiak, and a renewal liquor license for malt liquor, wine and spirits for Bleecker and Greer. Do we have any comments from the public on either of those three items this evening? I am hearing none. So with that, we will close the public hearings for those three items and revisit those later in our agenda. So we will start this evening with our, actually, let's have a motion to move into regular session since we exited executive.
I move we enter into regular session.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, great. So we are in executive session, and John, I will turn it to you for town manager report.
Okay, well, thank you. So this is that time of year, March. This is a time when nomination papers are available. We have a number of positions, both the select board. We have two positions on the select board, 3 positions on the budget committee, a seat on the CSD and MSAD board, school board, as well as 2 positions, I believe, in the library. So this is the opportunity for people to get involved. At present, when we have 2 people who've taken out any papers for any office, so this is a good time for people to reach out and get a chance to get involved and find out what's going on out there in the world. So we're certainly, if you have questions or want to be involved, reach out to Liz Lowe, our new town clerk, and certainly she can answer any questions you may have. Just takes 25 signatures. It's a very simple process. We have, like I said, there's a number of spots.
John, I have talked to several people about just trying to get some energy around the select board elections and, who said, oh my gosh, I had no idea. How do you find out about these things? So I wondered if we could use our civic alert. I know most of us are just getting the weather warnings, but
Which we appreciate.
I wish they didn't come at 3 a.m, but other than that, that's. But I always felt like that was a system that was meant to sort of keep people informed of other things happening in Rockport as well. And I just wondered if that would be something we could do to just alert people that papers are now available for these openings.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good use for the tool, yeah.
The other question I had, somebody just
Yeah.
asked if this is live streamed or YouTube.
We're having trouble with the stream of YouTube, so we don't have it available for YouTube, but we'll have it up when we're done. So we'll have it recorded, and then it'll be available after the meeting.
They can also, they can go to vimeo.com /Rockport, Maine. It's going out on that.
Oh, okay.
The old page.
The old page?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, I had a little bit of a comment in here about wastewater and trying to summarize where the conversations have been over the last few meetings. Of course, the select board had a meeting with to discuss sort of the findings that have been discovered thus far in terms of wastewater treatment and what the options available are. Obviously, that's a very early in the process conversation, but those discussions obviously are ongoing, and people have questions. They want to know, how is this working? What's happening? Where is it going? And hopefully trying to provide some clarity and context to that conversation. So again, there's some data in there. The other thing I want to talk about is the Donut Festival. I know that's sort of like not really what we do here, but this is going to happen. This is the first annual Donut Festival. It's going to be June 2nd through the 4th. And there's going to be event down at the harbor. We're going to have cornhole. There's going to be dinner on the bridge. People love the dinner on the bridge. 5K race. So the libraries had their traditional 5K race. They're taking that 5K and lumping it in with the donut festival. So it's craft beer tent, food trucks. It's going to be a fun time. So kids events. So anyway, look forward to that coming up here in early June. And the last thing I just want to mention, and there's a number of things in my report, but this is that time of year where mud season, and it can seem a lot of people don't realize this when I talk to people about how much the town or the state own around what we all understand to be our road. It's sort of like a mind-blowing circumstance. So in many cases, the actual road width is about 50 feet wide. And the roads that you see are usually 20 feet, 16 feet, depends upon the size of road. But usually what's owned by the town, the state, is around 50 feet. So when you see these situations where, plows are scraping up the sides of the beautiful grass that they're looking forward to having grown in the months ahead, it's actually something that's actually on a town piece of property that needs some care and maintenance.
Because there will be people ask, it's 50 feet from the center of the road, not 50 additional feet on either side.
Right, not 50, right,
Well, no,
50,
just-
50 in total.
50
right,
total.
Right, not 100,
Yeah.
50, right, exactly. And that includes the ditches and the like, but, we ask our plowed truck drivers to do their best to try to not damage property, even if it's our own property, but certainly private property. But realistically, this is a situation where we're often in cases required to push back, particularly this time of year when you have rainstorms after snowstorms followed by another rainstorm and then it ices up. You have to get that snow off the edge of the road so that way the water can get in the ditch. If we don't do that, then we have some really, really damaging situations, undermine of roads and so forth. So I understand it's not pretty. I understand it's not attractive. But unfortunately, it's what's needed in Maine in March to make sure we have a road in April. So it's kind of a little bit of a helpful hint to let everyone know how that works. That's about it. There's a lot of it, but I think we can,
Okay.
that covers it.
Any questions for John?
Notice there was nothing from the police department this month, is there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. Usually I'm taking this from what's going on in our department head meetings, and there were a couple items, but they were more internally focused. So I usually strip those out because not necessarily everyone's interested in a training or somebody being out or something like that. That's something that's more internally focused. So
Should we just comment on the employment opportunities that are still open? The Public Works and the Videotech?
yeah.
Keep doing that,
Still
but
2 openings, that's right.
Well, we have we have 2 Public Works employees who are retiring likely. I haven't received letters, but I'm expecting middle of next month. And so we have those openings, and I'm hoping we'll fill them in time prior to their departure in a month from now.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, John. Any public input on non-agenda items tonight? Come on up. Yeah, I think if you would, we can get you on the mic there.
Hi, sorry. My name is William Levy, and my wife and I had put in an application for a liquor license for a spot at Five Country and Way. It's a catering company, and I just didn't hear you mention it in your role of things
Yeah.
dealing with liquor licenses. And when I spoke to Liz Lowe maybe
saw that
2 weeks
on
ago, she assured me that it would be considered at the meeting today. So
You're in
I'm
here.
just kind
I
of
think
checking to
it's
see
in
if that
here.
is
You're
the
in here.
case or.
What's
Or
the
not.
name?
You just might not have been on our agenda.
Is it
so-
Sophia LK
Yeah.
is,
Okay,
is
yes.
the business
We
name.
mentioned
and
that.
I'm
We just weren't
DBA,
sure how to
so-
pronounce it.
Yep,
Yeah, we just.
you are on there.
Sorry.
In the
Okay.
packet, but not on the paper.
Well, you are on the
No,
paper as
everything's there.
Sophia.
We
Tell me
just
again.
mispronounced the name, I think so.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Stay close.
I'm
You're
sorry.
fine.
I just
Stay
didn't. I
close.
didn't catch that.
Nope,
Yeah.
you're
Sorry.
fine. You are on here. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, any other public input on non-agenda items? Any amendments to the agenda?
We have to mention,
Wastewater?
Yeah.
No, I think we could just add that to our wastewater
Okay.
commission, since we have commissioners. We will go into that. All right, next we have our consent agenda, which consists of our February 13th meeting minutes.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Any questions? All in favor? Okay. Okay, we will move on to our action items. So the first action item is to act on the special amusement permit for the Farmstead Event and Conference Center.
The cheat sheet.
Chief Gagny has approved the application for that. Do we have a motion for that?
I move the, oops, I don't see.
Here you go.
I
I'll
move
share
the
with
board
you.
approve the special amusement permit for this Farmstead Event and Conference Center.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. All in favor, pass. We have a new liquor license for malt liquor, wine, spirits for Sulfiac?
Sophia, yeah.
Sophia. No, you're fine, you're fine.
I move the board approve the liquor license for Sofielk
We will get it right someday.
LLC.
First name and then her initial.
I know, it sounds like it's
There
a
you
good
go.
email
Do
address.
we have a second on that? Oh, Jim, I got you. Any discussion? All in favor? 5 in favor, thank you.
Good luck.
Yes,
Yeah.
good luck.
Thank you.
And then our last one is act on the renewal liquor license for malt liquor, wine, and spirits for Bleecker and Greer.
I move the board approve the liquor license renewal for Bleecker and Greer.
Second.
Whoops. Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor.
nice handwriting.
Thank you.
That's my comments.
All right. so
Yeah, we could
those
read that one.
3 are taken care of. The next we have is to act on committee applications. So Rob Dibus? Dibus, hello. If you want to step up and tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
Sure.
Not to put you on the spot,
I was
but
gonna say I should have prepared.
I know, you're
statements.
fine, you're fine.
My name is Rob, and I've been in Rockport not too long, probably 2+ years, and was interested in getting more involved in the community. And I was approached by a current planning board member about joining the planning board, and submitted an application. And is there anything that you?
Any questions for Rob? Comments, other than we really appreciate you
Yes,
stepping
thank
up
you
and
for-
volunteering
You're
to fill very important roles, so we do certainly appreciate that.
I move the board approve Rob Dibus' application for the planning board with a term ending in June 2026.
Second.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? All in favor. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next we have is to approve Allison Engel. Hi. Oh, hi, come on up, Allison. And this is for Rockport Parks and Beautification.
Hi, I'm Allison. Most people call me Allie. Similar to Rob, my husband and I moved here about 2 years ago to Rockport. And also similar to Rob, a couple people approached me about joining the Parks Committee. So I didn't really know the full process, but very happy to be here. Hope that I can be of service in protecting our beautiful natural resources.
Well, again, we appreciate it. We appreciate you taking time to volunteer, so
I move the board approve Allison Angel, application for the Rockport Parks and Beautification Committee with a term ending in June 2026.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor? All in favor. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. The next we have is to act on a quit claim deed. Jonathan, you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, this is a timeshare property. So after the foreclosure date, they had inquired of the town they wish to retain ownership of their timeshare. So we provide a redemption period after the foreclosure period begins, or when the foreclosure period begins, which allows them to retain or resume their ownership. To do so, by board policy, they have to pay all prior years unpaid at once. So they've made those payments, and this would simply return their ownership, I should say.
Move the board approve the quitclaim deed, map T02, lot A06-007.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Sure.
Okay. Right, moving right along, we will go to the RES Park Proposal Resolution of Support. So Jonathan, who's going to kick us off on that?
Sure, I will.
Okay.
The town, just before the new year, there was I would say, something a little bit beyond an exploratory conversation that the board held in executive session with Linda Lesher, her son Justin, Mary Jane Young, representing the Lesher Family Foundation, and Eamon, from Terry Dewan Architects. And the conversation at that point was, I think, somewhat of the same formula that this current memorandum discusses. Their proposal to the town and to the board at that point was to take the RES property, which had been the source of obviously a great deal of conversation, discussion, some debate as to what the future dispensation of that property should be, and offered to gift to the town the construction of a park, which would exceed more than $3 million in the first phase of construction. And the town would retain ownership of the property, and in addition, the Lesher Family Foundation would establish a endowment to protect and to cover the all upfront costs, or all ongoing costs of maintenance and otherwise to maintain the park. On top of all that, the Lesher Family Foundation has offered to the town a contribution in the amount of $1 million, which would cover effectively a purchase price, but the amount that on the best of all days, the town could acquire on the private market if the town were to have sold the property. So obviously, that's a great deal to chew on and consider. I've been working with Orion in my office from our planning community development department, has been working with the Lesher family to try to put this conversation into a package where the board could at least discuss it, put it on the table, and then with eventual, if it passes muster with the board, eventually to place it on a ballot for the entire town to decide upon at the June polls. So obviously, there's a great deal of detail that has to go into this. How do you build the endowment? What's the private-public relationship like? How do we ensure that the town's rights and responsibilities are protected, while at the same time ensuring that the Lesher family's gift is honored and rewarded? The goal, if the board's action votes in favor of this memorandum tonight, would be to put that work into overdrive over the next month, so that way these details could be ironed out in time for a warrant article could be included at your meeting in April, when you would approve your warrant for the June ballot. There is a question that's later on in this agenda to order the clerk to create warrant articles, but that's effectively, some of that detail of what would be in that article is in this motion. So the point of this really being is, this is a kickoff. This is not the final draft of what the voters would consider, but it's a giant first step. And, you know, I want to thank, you know, the family, Lesher family. You know, the voters will have their say, whether or not this is how they wish to see that park transition to a new phase in its evolution. You know, from a playground field that a few of us were on, to now to a field that was a drive-in theater, to something else, to now something that I think could have a host of different uses. And I think as more details come out about what those uses could be, from open playing fields to, you know, there's endless. There's a lot of different possibilities. Walking trails, it goes through the list. I think that this is a park that really touches all aspects of the town, from our youngest residents to our oldest. And that's, you know, there's very few things in our community that do that. I've been struck over the last year and a half how few people really know what happens at the Marge Jones Field. That place is mobbed. It's for anyone who has kids of a certain age. You spend your life there between the ages of 8 and 13. But a lot of people in town have no idea that place exists. So I think what's exciting about this potential here is that through the conversations about this building, being the library, somehow organically we all decided that the RES is the middle of the town. It's a place that no matter what, Simon's Corner, West Rockport, Glen Cove, it's sort of a place where everyone can meet, drive to, and use together. And so sort of organically we found that out about ourselves as a community. Now the question is, what best uses can we put there? And we've heard a great deal over the last decade about potential uses for housing or commercial development.
I
But
think what we heard is what people did not want.
we've also
right?
heard that
We heard a
too.
lot about what they didn't want,
More than what
honestly.
we wanted.
Right, I mean, and through our study with New Height and all of the meetings, I think it was loud and clear that people did not want it to be developed housing, what have you. They thought that we would lose something as a town. And
Right.
to be honest, for someone to step forward and offer this town $4 million to start, and then an ongoing contribution to maintain it, is something we've never had offered to us before. You know, I think we've had people who wanted us to give it, to develop, to do whatever, but, you know, it's a very, very generous offer, which we should all seriously consider, so.
And I think one of the attractive features is that the Lesher Family Foundation isn't here to tell us what's going to go at the RES site. They really want community input. They want to listen to what the community wants there. They have worked with Terry Dewan and Associates to get some ideas of what's being done in parks all over the country, and you know, so we're not just starting in a vacuum. But they want to hear from all of us. What is that site? What does that mean to us? How will we best use it? And, you know, I think in this resolution of support, there's some specific thoughts there. That's right, Jeff, go to the side and speak into it. You know, including a performance space so that there's some indoor space there so the site can be used year-round. So it is incredibly generous and exciting.
You know, as Jonathan said, there'll be more coming out as time passes, but it'll be coming out rather rapidly. And I think, you know, not only is this going to be a great thing that's being given to us, but there are good things to be coming because of it.
Yeah.
Beyond the field, that we'll get into down the road
Right.
soon.
All right, any questions for Jonathan? All right,
I move the board approve the resolution of support as presented with the Lesher Family Foundation.
Second.
any discussion? No, seeing none, all in favor? All right. excited for this journey. All right, the next item is the warrant articles for June 13th referendum.
Yep. So I put together a memo that was sort of a combination, a Frankenstein of Orion's memo with some items that have come from the planning office and the ORC, and then the top 4 bullets here. There was discussion last year at various points. There were no votes taken, but there was discussion last year about the potential of referendum voting of the town budget. And so I'm putting it on here because there was discussion. We didn't vote, and obviously it would have been too early last year to consider that this year. But it's absolutely within the bounds of the board. The charter provides the board with the opportunity to choose the method of deciding how the warrant is decided, how the warrant is presented to the residents. So if you chose to have it via general election referendum, so be it. That would also, the second bullet then is to consider the other items. So those accept gifts, to set the date for taxes being due, and so forth and so on.
I think, John, a lot of our voters really don't realize that there are many items that they're not voting on when they go to the voting booth.
Right.
That if they don't come to the town meeting and sit up in the Opera House or wherever we have it this year, that they're not voting towards those things. So, I think we should consider that. I think probably in 2020, we probably had it on the ballot
Yeah.
because of COVID.
Right.
But there are a lot of things that the average voter who doesn't attend the town meeting isn't weighing in.
Right.
So, just a thought. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, and who might not, if you've got kids, you've got
Work,
busy
you've got,
evenings, you
yeah.
may not have time to go to, it is, I'd like the input of all of our voters on
Right.
these issues.
Yeah, I would
I
too.
mean, having gone to 35 or so of them, and for the average to be like 45 to 55 people, 900 or 1,500 people, you get a better picture of how people feel.
That's true.
That's my
Yeah. And
2
from
cents worth.
the many people that have come to me about this, they are not happy about having 10% of our usual amount of voters vote on the money side of things. So I've heard from numerous people that they want it on a ballot, so.
I think it would be a change, certainly.
Absolutely, yeah.
We went through some of this with COVID, right? So there's
Right.
we all had to do things a little differently, but it's, as a traditionalist, I have a hard time giving up with the way we've always done it and going down to the Opera House and, sitting up on the stage and all that goes with that and facing the voters. But unfortunately, we've heard tonight, or 2 of our committee members, the last couple of years, they don't know that history, but they know how to vote,
Right.
and I think we
And they'll
need-
make it a point to vote.
Exactly.
But they might not be able to come to a town meeting. They might not know or remember to go to a town meeting.
And-
Right.
And they come back-to-back nights,
Right.
so.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. So those 2 items, the idea would be to take all of those items that we have in that warrant and put them into, referendum ballot questions. So that would be the top 2 bullets. The third one is the construction of the West Rockport Fire Station. Obviously, we're going to hear a little bit more about that in a little bit, but obviously that would be part of that conversation. The 4th bullet is the Lesher Family Foundation, that gift and that process. So that would be the 4th bullet. And then moving into the planning office and ORC questions, merger of the 2 906 zone districts, merger of all 3 907 zone districts, a question for definition clarity regarding structures, a question for landscape requirement clarification and buffer zone requirements, and a question in regards to LD 2003 for incorporating additional dwelling units requirements. Remember, LD 2003 is the sort of blanket, wide, wide swath of impact that the legislature placed into land use last spring in an attempt to try to address the housing crisis that the state faces. Municipalities feel that there's some overreach in that process, but you also can't ignore that there are some real issues with housing, and we need to find ways to address that. So, we've had a group working on some of those solutions, and some of those will be ready for the ballot. Some of them may need to go beyond into November. But, there's the rulemaking for this law was released within the last couple weeks, not giving us a lot of time to react and change our ordinances. We're going to do our best, but unfortunately,
I think those are
time is
just,
what it is.
I think those are proposed. I don't even think those are final rules.
Oh,
Here we go.
Here
Here we go.
That's right.
There you go.
So I'm assuming that we'll get these in some permanent format for the April meeting,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is like very close to the deadline.
Yeah, yeah, so this is, the way that this is laying out is, we're trying to help the clerk get its sense, so she can get the,
Start to
get the
draft.
the questions. And it's the sort of broad range of issues that you want addressed on the ballot, whatever they might be. And then the details, you could get there the 9th or the 10th and say, well, let's take
No,
out this word, or,
Right.
I understand all that, I'm just saying that on the 10th, we'll have the final product.
well, the week before, but in your packet, but yeah, absolutely, yep.
Okay. Do we have a motion for that?
I move the board direct the town clerk to draft warrant articles to address the topics outlined in the town manager's memo as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, all in favor.
Could just look there.
What's, I could, couldn't I? Not used to having that up in the front.
I know, it's a little weird.
Okay. The next item, we will move into our discussion items. So we have the West Rockport Fire Station bid presentation. I know Jason is not here. Is Amanda here? Oh, Amanda, come on up. And I know we have some representatives from the fire department, so feel free to chime in as well.
So, just to kick things off,
Yes.
so obviously this has been a process that has been going on for several years. There was a committee that was established to investigate this project. And actually that predates my arrival here as well. So I'm, in part, I'm sort of the newcomer to the game here. Although, I think this is a project that everyone in town has been aware of for some time, right? So I think the last time that Amanda and Jason and Bill came to the board was this fall, perhaps, before some of the design work was being finalized for the bid. And really, I think the reason why I wanted to have Amanda and Bill and Jason, although he's headed to parts unknown right now, here, is that we really, the bids are out in public, and they're due back here on April 3rd. So we're nearing the end of a process here. And just in talking with a number of you, in the last few, days and weeks, and certainly going through budget, I think it was really important that we get a bit of a refresher course on what's out to bid, what's included in this project, why is it included in this project, and what, maybe looking through the crystal ball, where are we gonna end up? Programmatically, that, we've talked a lot, particularly through the budget process, about having firefighters and full-time firefighters and what is EMS. And that's very much informing what this building is and its programming and how it's going to be used. And I think more so now than probably 2 years ago when I came around, or 4 years ago when this was all planning, but it's always been a component of the building. And I think it's probably just those ideas are sharpened and more in focus. Today, we had a mandatory bid meeting with prospective bidders on the project. There were 4 bidders there, as well as some subs who stopped by, walked over the site. Amanda, Bill, myself, and Jason were there to answer any questions they may have. But we are, essentially lined up to start, to receive those bids on April 3rd. And then concurrently, as we just were talking about, that the warrant will be approved on April 10th. So that's a very short turnaround to go from opening a bid to creating a warrant article, plugging a number in, and working from there. We've, as you all know, through the budget process, we've carved out enough money for our short-term borrowing and sort of setting ourselves up. Obviously, we just talked about the Lesher Family Foundation, and that, where that comes in terms of this building, is also part of the mix. But I think ultimately it all comes back to the building, the bid, the project, all those things, and making sure the 5 of you feel like you've got, feeling comfortable with where that is, where that's headed, because, it's a great sum of money, and it's an important piece of not just our fire service, but it's an important part of how we're growing and developing as a town. What is West Rockport? When you come into town on Route 90, or you come in on 17, that building in that corner stands out. And making sure we do this right is critical, so.
And that we build it for the future, right? So that we know what we have now doesn't work, unfortunately, and it's beyond repair. And that it's a lot of money, but we build it so that we know we have the ability in the future to grow, so.
So this doesn't get lost because we're gonna get sort of a cram course tonight, and then we're gonna have it to digest, but should we consider between now and the 10th to have a workshop where we might delve into it more?
After the bids, do you think, Mark?
Pardon?
After the bids?
No, well, yeah, I mean, sometime before the 10th, obviously, but after the bids come in and we can sit down and delve into it and talk a little more.
Yeah, so there's a chance, I don't know if it rings home for you all, but there is a chance in terms of how the budget could, the ping pong of the budget can go, that there's a potential that you may need to meet on April 3rd.
Okay.
So there may be sort of a dual purpose if you need to, who knows, but
We should
it's-
probably plan on that.
That would be
I
good
mean,
timing.
yeah. I mean,
Doesn't
it will be
hurt.
tight because you could potentially get a bid that day.
Yeah.
Because they're due the 3rd, right?
Right, right,
So, but we should just probably plan on carving extra time out on that night.
sure, sure.
Good.
Yep, I think that makes sense.
So I don't know if Amanda and Bill are here, and certainly I think Amanda could maybe just walk us through maybe
That
the
would be
building
great.
and all that, and Bill, obviously the site, and then Todd, John are here, can, make sure that, they can do their best Jason Beasley impression, so I won't do that to you guys.
Don't hold them to that.
Wow.
Would you like to start with the site, Bill?
Well, sure. So, good evening. I'm Bill Lane from Gartley Dorsey Engineering and Surveying. The original building at the corner of West Street and Rockland Street is 1973 construction. It's a 2-bay masonry structure. It is functionally obsolete, and it has not been getting the best of care over the past 15 years. So it is time to replace that. The proposal would keep that building in place while the new fire station is being constructed. And so behind that, a level fill pad has previously been constructed that occupies most of the Linworth Thorndike homestead property to the extent that we are able to fill behind the fire station. We are bound to the south by a stream, so we do have an outer limit of what we can build to, so we are working to the limits of the capacity of the site at this point. And the proposal is to build a 4-bay fire station that utilizes the West Street curb cut that exists there now, widens it slightly, and for which we've secured a main DOT entrance permit. Brings in new utilities from that side of the street and creates a large paved apron for the apparatus operations, which is a new and beneficial component of what's available to us out there. Adjacent to the east of the fire station is additional parking that's allocated for responders, as well as some utility space, places for our backup generator and propane tanks for those backup generators. And to the rear of the constructed building, and Amanda will get into the details of it, are crew and administrative spaces. To the west of this building is access from Route 17, from approximately the old Thorndike curb cut, for parking for both the facility writ large, in case it was permanently staffed, and some meeting space that's allocated within the building as well. In addition, we're reutilizing an existing storage shed that we have out there at present. The limits of the project, as I've noted, are really building out to the full extent of what we own and can improve out there.
Okay, if we can flip to the floor plan on the screen, I can orient people that way, or I can get to the drawings. They may be hard to read at that distance.
Thank you, Jeff.
Ah, okay. That stuff requires me.
Pretty good with that camera, Jeff.
So let's see, Jeff, let's start in the vehicle bay. So people can see.
To the left, yeah.
Yeah, to the left.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Trucks.
Yes.
Bingo.
So, starting in the vehicle bay, which is here, we have space for 4 vehicles, 3 of which are anticipated to be fire department vehicles. The 4th space was originally designed if an emergency EMS vehicle is needed in the future, so that bay is there for that purpose. I can back up a little bit and tell you that the construction of the building is set up to be slab on grade, wood frame construction, pre-engineered wood trusses throughout. So 4 vehicle bays across the front. As you come in through the middle of the building, you come into a hallway, which is immediately adjacent to what we would anticipate would be the fire department chief's office, although it's designed to be flexible for anyone to come in and out of there. There's a little bit of space for technology there. And then back up at the top of the plan are storage and utility spaces. Moving down the plan, we come to the meeting space, where we would anticipate both adequate space for trainings and multi-department trainings, but also the occasional public meeting to be held there when needed, when that space is needed, and we know there is a need for that in town. Off that space, again, some technology space up here at the top, a restroom accessed around the side for the public and for staff and crew, and then storage space for tables and chairs off that space. Moving up into the plan, at the top here, we have crew spaces, also sprinkler room access from the outside, and 2 shower rooms in the anticipation that there is a need for, or there will be a need for overnight stays by the crew. And their shower rooms are there beside that. In late fall, I think it was late October, we had a discussion with John and Jason regarding the potential for some additional staff on site in the future, and thinking about some of those needs that may come up. And at the time, and probably now, looked like that really was going to be a need, possibly sooner rather than later. So we've added to the plan at that point an additional 300 square feet to accommodate what you now see on the plan as office number 2 and office 3. That created a minimal addition to the overall footprint of the building, but again, that was about 300 square feet to accommodate those 2 offices. Whether they're used as offices now or storage, whatever they may be, the space is there to accommodate whatever those needs might be in the future. We can look at the exterior of the building if you'd like. Any questions on the floor plan or the program needs? Okay. So the top elevation here, as you can see on the screen, is the elevation facing Route 90. So the 4 vehicle bays across the front. On the exterior, around the vehicle bays, there's a lower wainscot of concrete masonry veneer for protection of the building, also bollards to protect from vehicles coming in and out. And then also, you see the truss frame roof and the gable roof there. So pretty simple roof forms. The siding is a composite factory finish siding, thinking about that longevity of the structure itself and the maintenance of the structure. And then around the sides, you can see again, pretty simple gable roof forms and hips roof form off the back. As you know the site, I'm sure, up towards Route 90, the site is quite high. As it heads down 17, it slopes quite significantly because the building pad was raised to create this essentially enough space for our 6,000 square foot building and the parking lot around it. So we made an effort to try and transition the height of the building down along that side as well. So I think I can answer any questions or anything else you'd like me to point out. I'm happy to do so.
You know, I've always got a question.
Sure.
I asked Bill the other day, and he wasn't aware, but now I found
Yeah.
it's 6,100 square feet.
I was looking for that.
For this type of construction, what are you seeing for cost per square foot to build?
So, oh, sorry. We've had some feedback come in, not specifically cost per square foot from the contractors that are looking at this right now. But we're definitely seeing costs rising. I mean, a year or two ago, I would have told you $200 a square foot, $250.
Residential, yeah.
I think, and commercial being even lower than typical residential, being a little bit higher. I think we're well upwards of that, although I don't have an exact number to give you. Things are changing all the time. Our estimate was done in 2021, so about 20 months ago, since we saw that $2 million estimate. And I think on that, based on some things we're hearing and seeing, we'll be significantly above that.
Pretty good way of getting around.
I wish I
Answer.
had
I'll
an
tell
answer
you,
for you.
I'll tell you why, well,
Well,
the concern is that they're watching. So
So-
maybe on the third, we'll have a
Maybe we'll have a
concern.
better
That's
idea.
But-
good, but I
Yeah.
understand also it's gonna
Yeah.
be significantly more than what he was.
Right.
And I think that, you know, those are the reasons that we all know we've had a time lag between when the estimate was done and now, and the past couple of years have been rough ones for pricing. We did add a few hundred square feet, and while that's only 5% of the building floor area, it's gonna add something. And then the drawings have evolved. When we did the estimate, it was a very schematic set of drawings. We wanted some sort of framework to understand costs, but they have evolved since then. We'll be pricing based on those, of course. So,
Other questions? I'm sorry, did you? Oh, thought you raised your hand. John, anything else? I mean, I think that we'll have a lot more to talk about as April rolls around.
Right.
I think it's a good idea, Mark, to have time on the 3rd to look at those proposals that come in. That certainly is going to give us a little bit more insight as to what's out there. Again, we have $1 million that we potentially can put towards that, so that's good, but it's a lot of money, and we just need to make sure we're mindful of that.
I don't know if John or Todd had anything they wanted to add.
I think you both covered.
I had a feeling you were gonna say that.
All right.
No, I
mean-
just think it's a necessity, you know, I mean, for where we're headed and for the situation we're in now with all our drivers unfortunately being in the West Rockport area. We've got nobody close in town anymore to drive apparatus. It's either Bill or I coming from a ways away. We're gonna need to push more equipment out that way. We're gonna end up with 3 trucks out there and 2 here in town, which is reverse to what it's always been in the past.
But that's where our growth is.
For sure.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, those of us that live out there appreciate that.
And we've been spaced for an ambulance, which sometime within the lifespan of this station, no matter, it's gonna be reality, so.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I would just quickly add that we did, as John said, had 4 bidders there today. We have confidence that they'll continue through the process. And in this environment, I think 4 bids would be welcome. Most people aren't bidding projects right now in public bid process, so we think that that's a good sign that we have some solid interest around the project. And they are all also aware that there will be a period of value management that will take place once bids come in to see how we can get the best value for the town for this project and to be able to manage costs where we can without sacrificing quality for the current or future needs of the building. So
That's great.
And that's also, I would add, that's also a nice thing by having the 2 folks sitting next to me are also Rockport residents who are taxpayers as well. They want to see this as something that's a good value as well. So,
appreciate that.
we have a lot of people who are trying very hard to try to make this project the best project it can be. And, the market is going to be what the market's going to be, and we'll, have to deal with that as it comes. But there's a lot of hard work, both on the fire department side, but these folks here are really working hard to try to make this the best building we can make it. So I'm very appreciative for the 2 of them.
Absolutely.
Hopefully the bidders are low, and we can, we're really happy. I tried today, I was really working on them, but not much luck.
All right, any additional questions for Amanda or Bill or anyone? No? All right, thank you. I know a lot of hard work has gone into this, so certainly we appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
All right, next we have the valuation adjustment. Carrie, you're up. Yeah, that's next, but I don't
Thanks,
know
guys.
where it is here. Not anything here, but
I think this, but why do we have,
this, that's for
there's
wastewater.
nothing in the,
There's
See
nothing
you
in the
guys.
packet for it, but-
there's nothing in the packet on
Right.
this.
No.
I thought Jason said the regionalization, there was gonna be 2 trucks out there.
But where's the thing about that? There's nothing in this, in the-
This is on
Regionalization,
wastewater.
yes.
oh, that's the
We
way.
would, yes, yeah, we're not doing regionalization, no.
So,
No,
just
because
to
we'll
get
end
us
up
started,
running it
Yes,
if we are now.
Discussion we still need to have.
couple weeks ago, our state auditor came in and met with Carrie. And through that conversation, started more conversations about status of our valuation to state valuation. And that's an important, I'll give you the town manager answer, and then you'll get the assessor answer. That's about 5 or 10 levels below, deeper than I'm capable of. But effectively, our values are strong. However, the market has been stronger, and we're in a position at this point where our assessor, myself, and I think the 5 of you want to have a conversation about where do we go from here. Unfortunately, the world of assessing can also be a bit of Karnak, where you're sort of reading the future. Unfortunately, it's not nearly as funny as Johnny Carson was. So this is a very unfunny future where our values are simply at a place, and unfortunately, the market has grown pretty fast. So in any event, we mentioned this through the budget process. This was an ongoing conversation, and as these impacts obviously drive mill rate, great to great effect. And Carrie has been working, we've worked on a number of different scenarios over the last several weeks. But they continue to come back to, there are no great answers here. But I'll let Carrie sort of take it from here and do his best.
No great answer is not a great introduction.
No, I'm sorry. Just trying to be honest.
As you might know, the state numbers lag 2 years from reality. And what that does actually do for us, it gives us an opportunity to really see into the future and to see where we're headed so that we can plan for it and react to it before it happens to us. So we got our certified ratio from the state today, not today, recently. And they have our developed parcel ratio for this year at 76%. I'm allowed to add 10% to that for our certified ratio. So that means we could certify this year at 84%. Now, this is represented by sales that took place from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. So that was the beginning of the COVID market, the first year of it, which is why our values plummeted from what they were before. And so what generated this conversation was, do we want to leave it there, or do we want to do an update to get us up to 100%? Now, there's a lot of mitigating factors here. One is that we're planning a full measure and list reval for 2025. So we could float along, we could let our ratio go down and just wait until 2025, which is a viable thing to do, or we could preempt it by doing a statistical update now, bring our ratio up, and then by the time we get to 2020, right now the market has flattened out. So when we get down to 2025, there's a real good chance that there won't be, that there won't be too much value adjusting going on, that we've already, done that. But let me run you through the next 3 years as my crystal ball shows us. So that's for this year. Next year, 2024, remember we did an update just last year.
Right.
That's when those numbers will kick in.
Okay.
So in 2024.
So Carrie, can I just interrupt? So does that mean that what we did last year isn't reflected in what we're talking about?
Right.
Not until
So
next year, correct. See,
So we're like chasing something.
what we did last year enabled us to certify at 100%. And if I could just take a minute out to explain to people what I mean by certify.
Yeah, please.
So we measure assessment quality by taking we study recent sales. And we take the assessed value divided by the sale price, and we get a ratio. And what we need to do to maintain, and I'll explain why this is important in a second, a 100% certified ratio, is we need to stay between 91% and 100%. That's the overall ratio. So we take all of those sales ratios, we line them up and just divide them, simple math. And so we need to be somewhere between 91 and 100% because I'm allowed to add 10% to the actual ratio, so we stay within 100. Being at 100% does a number of things. One is it keeps, like your homestead exemption stays at $25,000. If we were at 90%, you would only get 90% of $25,000. So that goes through all of the exemptions. But we also have to multiply that ratio by other things. For example, personal property. So we go out and we collect personal property revenues, and we had, I think last year it was $22 million. I'd have to multiply that 22 million by the ratio. So what that does is we lose tax dollars. And when we lose tax dollars, it puts pressure on the mill rate because we have to make it up somewhere. So it's a balance between the two, and that's in general what happens, but that's why ratios are important.
And state revenue sharing as well, we only get?
Doesn't touch it.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's
That's
just homestead
normalized at
exemption and
100%
personal.
regardless, right.
Okay.
Right. But there are other reimbursements that it would affect, homestead exemption reimbursements, that it would be affected there, and Betty, that would also be affected by it. So there are a number of things that come into play. So it's important that we try as hard as we can to maintain 100%. And we've always been in 100% until the COVID market. And that's just, it's like catching a falling knife. It's been impossible. near impossible to maintain it. So last year, because we did an update, and actually by the time the update was done, we were already under the ratio. But a friend of mine at Maine Revenue showed me a little accounting trick that allowed us to certify at 100 anyway. So we lucked out there. But this year, we're down to, like I said, we're down to an actual ratio of 76 based on the first COVID market, which we could certify at 84. So that's an option we have. Next, let's just for a second assume we do nothing. We don't do an update. So we certify at 84 this year. Next year, we'll be able to certify at 92% because our actual ratio will be 84. Add 10% to that, and that brings us at 92, which isn't so bad. Then the next year, if we did nothing, we'd be at 69%. But that next year is when we're planning the reval, so we're okay. We do the rev. So we're looking at 1 year at 84%, next year at 92, and then we do the reval.
In 2025.
Right. So we could either do an update now, get to 100, and probably stay there through the 3 years, or let it ride.
And the reval takes effect immediately,
Yes,
unlike what we did last year, which
exactly.
doesn't take effect. That's just.
It's weird, I know. Go tell the governor.
So from a taxpayer perspective, because we all just went through a reassessment,
Right.
we would get another reassessment? Is that
Yes.
how that works?
Yeah, if we did an update, what we would do is we would study the market. I'll just give you a quick idea of where we are today. There's another piece of paper in here, I'm sure of it. There we go. Single-family homes, the ratio of single-family homes today is 65%. So say, I never want to raise to 100, but let's just use that for argument's sake, because the arithmetic is easy. At 65%, we'd want to go up 35% on average to single-family homes. Now, some homes, some areas in town, the ratio is, they're never even. So one place might be at 90%, another's at 60%. The 90% would go up 10, the 60% would go up 40. And everybody, please keep in mind that values going up doesn't necessarily mean taxes going up. Because with the additional value, we're able to lower the mill rate. So there's again, another balance that goes on. Some people's taxes will go up, but
And I think that's the challenge, right?
Yeah,
People's
absolutely.
taxes went up pretty significantly for some people.
right,
And I appreciate that the values are up, but that only is helping people who are selling their homes and moving.
exactly.
It's not helping those people that are trying to stay in Rockport, that have
Right.
lived in Rockport
Exactly.
all their lives,
Right.
that just want to stay in their homes. I'm
Yep.
glad we have, the tax freeze, I know, on people who are over 65, but, there are young families that have homes that just had a tax increase, and now we would consider another. And I think that's a lot to bear right now.
There is something, a rule of thirds that really holds true almost every time, and that is when you do an update or a revaluation, a third of the values will go down. Taxes, will go down. A third will stay the same, and a third will go up. And last time we did this, it fit right in there. So it's bad news for a third of the people. The other 2/3 were okay.
I must have been on the bad news
I
side.
mean, I was,
I was on the
too.
bad news side.
How much additional cost is it if you did what you're talking about right now?
it would be about $25,000.
Rather than wait?
Just a touch under.
Right.
Rather than wait, right,
So this year, you're certifying at 84% without doing anything.
without doing anything.
And that means that the homestead exemption, which is $25,000,
Would be 84% of that.
84% of that.
Right.
How many homes in Rockport, do you know, are subject to the homestead exemption?
Well, yes. I can tell you before the stabilization law came into effect, we had about 1,100. But then a lot of people signed up for the homestead when they did the stabilization. So we're probably up to about 1,300 or so.
Okay.
So, question, if my memory serves, when I asked, the biggest block of housing that was affected was between 200,000 and 500,000 in that?
The last time?
When we spoke.
Yes,
last,
that's right, yep.
And you said you weren't going to certify at 100, you were going to try to hit 93 or 94.
No, I wanted to settle down at 93 or 94 so that we could certify at 100. Add that 10%.
And so that, so you said 10% or 10 points?
10%.
Okay, so that's why I was trying to figure out, because you
4,000
said
times.
76 to 84.
Right, so
I thought
so
you
we're
said-
adding 8 to
Yeah,
the 76.
no, I thought
Yeah.
numbers
There's
instead of percentage.
There's a lot of them.
Fix the vet,
So-
too. This is another 10.
What do you see with the corrections you've already made that haven't been reflected in the state
1,100 homes.
numbers yet?
$4 million.
If you're putting us up at 84,
Be leaving on the
what-
table for the town.
your crystal ball again, when the state gives next year's numbers, which are still 2 years
25,000 is
old,
cheap.
do you expect to be near that 84 or above it?
Well, next year, we're going to be at 92. And the year after, when
But
we...
that's with your adjustment though, right?
No, that's without adjusting. That's because of the adjustment we did last year. That'll be 2 years after that.
Right.
That's what I don't understand. How can we adjust this year and get credit for it?
What we did
but
last year
not last
doesn't-
year? But did we get credit for it at
It's the state.
We got credit last year for the adjustment that we did, even though
But
we're
it
going to
doesn't
feel
carry
it, we're going to
forward
feel
to
it
this
next
year.
year. Right. I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't either, right.
Talk to some people. Well, when I calculate, if we're at 84% and it's a $25,000 homestead exemption, that's $4,000 that our residents will not get as a homestead exemption. And that times 1,300 homes is 5.2
Now,
million.
let me just soften the blow a little bit. That's 4,000 times the mill rate. So
Okay.
they're not losing $4,000, they're losing,
Losing whatever
you know, 4 times whatever our mill rate is, so less than $100.
Okay,
Okay, all
okay,
right,
so
that makes
then,
me,
because I'm
okay.
thinking about the $25,000.
Yeah, that's what I was,
to do this.
right.
I mean,
Do
I-
we- Is it benefit
You know, we
us?
talked, Carrie, I told you the one place over there that we added $1.3 million
Right,
that sold for 25,000 short of 2 million.
right.
So, I mean, there is a big discrepancy amongst everything from the low ones to the,
Yeah.
to the high-end ones.
Everything benefited.
Yeah, yeah.
You know. And, you know, and not to put the onus on you guys, but when we do a reval, if we're taking that new value and folding it into mill rate reduction, people benefit the most, you know, rather than, is John still here? He's not, rather than a new fire truck or something, you know? So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think just based on, I mean, doing the mill rate calculations, if we're right, it's like $130,000 that our residents would lose from not getting their full homestead exemption, and we can authorize $25,000 to avoid that. I still am very confused about what the long-term, I
Right.
still don't really understand why we have to keep doing it and
Well,
wait for 2
we
years
we
for
have
it to
to,
take
you know,
effect.
and what I would like to do is rather than wait until we're in a bad situation, I would prefer tweaking it every year or every other year. We wouldn't have to hire somebody to do that. It's something I'm fully capable of doing.
Okay.
And so, you know, when we're equalized, like I'm looking through, well, I said single-family homes, I'll look at neighborhoods here. You know, we have some neighborhoods that are at 76%, another one at 67, here's one at 80. So I look at those and, you know, I just kind of tweak the land values here and there, bring them up or bring them down if the case may be. The same thing with single-family homes. Now, we hardly do those as a category, but we could. There are just so many different ways to do it, but if we do it incrementally each year and just keep us from, now, as Mark was just saying, I like to adjust to in the low 90s rather than the high 90s. And that way, we're still getting the benefit of 100%, but we're taxing as low as we possibly can. And if we're, you know, committed to a program of tweaking every once in a while, we can keep it low. You know, one of the things that we do is when we do a revaluation, depending on how the market's looking, we would shoot for like 97%, so that over time, as the market and values grow a little bit, the ratio begins to come down, and we kind of save ourselves from having to do a new reval. But if we tweaked more often, we could keep it low and just keep on nudging it up every time it begins to dip below 91. And one of the things about that, so if we did a statistical update now, We would have formal hearings where we would send out letters with the new values, and people would come in, and we'd have that whole thing going on. If we were tweaking every year, I wouldn't want to do that. I would just have people be aware that this is what we do, and a lot of towns do this. You know, this is what we do, and you have a question, you can always come to me, you can always, you know, whatever. But that way, we can maintain it in a way that's inexpensive. When we have to hire somebody to do it, and we have to have hearings, it's an expense, you know, and that could be avoided if we're just maintaining something.
Question, I think we've set money aside in the past for a reval.
Yeah, that's right.
What do we have in that reserve, and what do you anticipate that fee might be for that to happen?
So we have 56, we put 56,000 in the reserve this year, in this year's budget. So,
Is that along with something that might already be there, or is that what we
no, I
have?
think this year was the first year we put money aside. Megan, is that, yeah, so.
There you are.
I only had one budget, so that was the one, yeah, but that was just the 56. So this would be roughly a little less than half of that amount.
And my answer to your question is 190,000.
For a reval.
For a full reval.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
And
well,
that's
for
the
that, yeah.
2025.
yes.
There's also an argument to be made, I mean, it's a philosophical debate, but should those who are benefiting from a reval, I'd say benefiting, but benefiting from whatever you found, be those who are paying for it, as opposed to when you pay reserves, in some cases, those who are paying the taxes now may not see the benefits of the reval that they are paying towards. So
It's like a bonding issue.
it is, it really is. It's, you know, it could go either way. But my sense is that in this case, it makes more sense to bond it once you've already captured that data and Carrie's working with it as opposed to save for it. But that's my.
Well, I mean, if you think.
You
of it-
guys-
If you think of it in that respect, 23, 24, we're doing 56. 24, 25, we do 56.
No, we're not.
I cut it.
It's not in the current.
I cut it. Yeah, because of that same idea, so I was trying to find $56,000 to reduce, so. But we still have the ability to handle a statistical update, it's just that 190 would be
I mean, we, you know,
pushed out.
bonding, I mean, we do have a big number coming up,
We do,
and I would like to think that we, as a board, could find money without bonding. It's just, I know we're in good shape. I'll just leave it to my other 20% co-parts to mull that over for a bit.
So if we do the tweaking, and then do we still do the reval?
Thanks for that question, because I was about to bring it up myself. So the reason that the full measure list is important is because things go on that we don't know about. And it's, first, the Constitution says we need to do this at least once every 10 years. We haven't done it since 2005, so the Constitution police haven't come after us, but it's well advised, though, because there is a lot that goes on that we don't know about. So we send people out, and they knock on doors, and they measure buildings, and we get up to date. And without doing that every so often, when we do these updates, we're actually updating bad data.
Yeah.
So we need to refresh our data. And so doing this once every 10 or 15 years is probably good practice.
So what is the action, if anything, we need to do this evening? Because it's as a discussion item, but.
it's a discussion item, but it's, I think we need to pick a horse. But go ahead,
You
yeah.
guys are going to meet April 3rd. You could mull this over.
Okay.
We need to make a decision soon, but I think just a couple weeks
Okay.
is not too much to ask. And if you want more information, you know where I'm at.
Okay, I think that's fair.
How much lead time does somebody need if we were gonna go out to bid, for
I don't think
somebody-
we'd bid this, Mark. The update or the reval?
For the reval, I mean, how much lead time do they need?
You mean the 2025
Yeah, they're
reval?
booking
Well,
they're booking their 2025 work now, so we want to get the RFP out pretty soon.
That's just for us to think about for.
Yeah.
April 3rd.
Yeah. And I recently did an RFP for Camden, and I did one for Rockland, so I've got my RFP fingers pretty sharp right now. It shouldn't take too long to put it together.
But what you really want to know is whether you have the $25,000 to get us to the 90, whatever the percentage is that'll get us full
Right.
credit.
And basically, the action there would be the board would have to authorize expending out of the reserve to,
Right.
for that
And I'm
purpose.
ready to, I don't know, does it help to have it sooner rather than later? And I'm happy to let everybody mull it over too, but
Yeah.
doesn't
You
sound
mean,
like.
you mean a decision or the update?
Yeah, a decision so that you can move forward.
I don't think it hurts us to give you the time, if you want it. I mean, you want to make a decision, great.
I think if you give us to the 3rd, we can add it to whatever
Agenda.
discussion, yep.
Okay.
And I did capture it in our notes so that we have that.
Awesome.
All right, any
Right.
other questions for Carrie?
Thanks, Carrie.
All right, thanks for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Carrie.
Yeah.
Next, we have on the list the Opera House restoration. I know there are probably some missing items still on that, but any
Yeah.
update you want to give us on Opera House?
Yeah, so this is the first time, I think, we've sort of had this as an agenda item. We had talked it was in my manager's report in February, I think. But we've talked about it through the budget process. So this is sort of the opportunity to sort of say to the public, and this is to, open up the curtain, I suppose, in that way. So as everyone in our community knows, the Opera House unfortunately sustained a great deal of damage in December, through the month of January and early February. All of the water damaged areas were removed from the building, and we sent out, circulated a bid to replace the flooring upstairs, both in the auditorium and on the lower level, both in the Parker room, the green room, sheet rock. That bid came back at $300,000. That was just flooring, sheet rock, and there's certainly parts that we can pick and choose with. Megan has been working hand in hand with our insurer, Maine Municipal Associations Insurance Company. Sorry, it's been a long day. And they are, they have been working with us on this, but this is a very complicated matter. And so there's some information that we're still awaiting this week. Yeah, we should have a report from this week on the condition of the subfloor. But not only was the floor damaged, but once the floor was removed, I would say the subfloor, even for those who are not builders, would make you very concerned at what you were seeing, which is not all that unexpected for a 125-plus year building. But before you put down a good floor, you probably want to make sure what you have below it is worth putting anything on top of. So that process is going forward. So we need to see, will insurance cover that issue, those subfloor issues? Secondarily, but perhaps primarily in terms of cost, is the condition of the sprinkler system. So obviously, the sprinkler system is what caused this issue from the beginning. The sprinkler malfunctioned. We'll say it malfunctioned because it charged, but truthfully, what's happening over time is the system is a dry system, so it's not charged all the time with water. So it fills with water, and then it gets drained, and fill, drain, fill, drain. Obviously, everyone who knows what can happen over time, rust and corrosion and a weakening of those lines. So that exploration is going on. Those have been cameraed. We're expecting to also get that report here mid this week. So there's two sort of big items that are out there. I had hoped we'd be able to have this in time for a discussion tonight, but that's not happening. But probably more so for the public to understand what's happening. You all are well aware of where we are, but there are some pressing concerns, I would say, in terms of our able to bring the Opera House back to what it was before, or better. And there are some costs that would be upwards and above what insurance will cover, likely. And there may be some bigger discussions that need to be had here over the next months about where this is going, how far we go. Are there alternative sources of revenues? Are there residents in the community who want to step forward and work together to do some fundraising to save that building? There's a lot there's still sort of undefined and unknown. But all of that is coming in the face of the fact that probably the Opera House had its best year in the last decade.
I know. It's the unfortunate part, right? We're just up and
It's that
running and
balance.
having great events and, I mean, it really does need a foundation. It really needs a group of residents to adopt it and bring it back to its glory. Because it's it's a beautiful facility and,
Yep.
it's the opportunity to have beautiful events there, but
Right.
at a cost that the town really can't sustain. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
And that might be, dare I say, for fear of not getting any votes. The June ballot might be a good litmus test of how people feel about it. If there's a way we could put a question on there that says,
Yeah.
keep it, sell it, find it, whatever.
I
Just
wouldn't
throwing
want, I wouldn't want to jump the gun on that. I think that is a valid discussion.
Yeah, no.
But I think we have more, June seems premature.
Well, no, I'm just
Right,
saying,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be in June, but
Yeah.
that will help
I think
give us
we
some
we may get
guidance
to
of
that point if we
what the
don't get.
bigger population, other than us five, think about it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it is a great place.
It's
It has
beautiful.
been.
It's,
It's so
I
much
went
a
to
part of
Girl
our
Scouts
history.
there, come on.
So in terms of like the sprinkler system, if we get the flooring and the walls and all that fixed, it's still operational. So we can still have events there. It's just if the system becomes charged again, the likelihood of another leak is very high. We had all the pipes in the ceilings cameraed so that we could get a full inspection report. The places that they cameraed are in need of replacement. And in order to replace those sections, we basically just have to replace the
entire system,
Right. We have put in, Glenn put in a battery backup system for the sprinkler system itself. So if we lose power at the Opera House, the system isn't automatically charged. It will keep the air compressor going until he can get there and disable the system. So we at least have that. But if the system does become charged again, the likelihood of another leak is high.
And if we do those repairs, we will be redoing them.
Right.
And can we disable the system and then just pay for a fire warden or something, whatever the term is?
I mean, we could, but the building goes vacant when there's not an event. I mean, there's no employee that goes in there on a regular basis. We do have a lot of events in there, and people are coming in and out of there, but it's not like every day. So I'm not sure as though, it's in close proximity to another house. I'm not sure that it's
Right.
something that you'd want
But the
to
insurance would
disable.
probably allow you to do that. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, we can do the fire. The fire marshal has allowed us. That's how we had the last two events that we had.
Yeah.
The last two events we had in there, we did buy a fire watch because our system was disabled.
Okay.
So it's certainly something that we can do. I just don't know as though that's what I would recommend
Yeah.
based on where it is.
Right.
And the proximity to other buildings and greenery and all that. I just think that we'd be asking for a problem if a fire started in there when nobody was in there.
Well, I mean, if a fire started there, let's face it, with the age of that building.
It would
it's
go quick.
Going to go quick, right, exactly.
No matter where the fire station was.
Right,
but-
no matter, right,
Yeah.
no matter where, right.
And I would just add, and this was mentioned during the budget conversations, and I, like you, Michelle, I have a very soft spot for me, if for that building,
Yes.
for a lot of reasons.
Halloween apple bobbing. Come on,
Exactly.
right?
I won a lot of Halloween contests walking down in that
That's
building, but it's, we have a lot of costs that we're gonna face as a town in the next 5 years. You know, we've talked about the Opera House. You know, thankfully, we have a benefactor who's working with us with RES. But, you know, the town office is going to need either an addition, a significant addition, or at the very least, some refurbishment to add a little bit of space. But truthfully, probably a bigger meeting room and more space for voting and all of these different things. That's a big cost. And never mind what's going on with wastewater. And so there's a lot of different items that are on the horizon that we have to sort of keep in mind. And weighing all those things out as a community, and that's really what we need the residents to do and the voters to say, hey, this is where our values are. You know, it would be a sad day for me if we were having to close that building. I understand why the folks in Union, for example, that Thompson Community Center, well, that's a hard thing to let go of. But, you know, it's 2023 and we have to do our best for Rockport in 2024 and beyond. And so I think we have all those details on the level, and you all can look and make some decisions, and we'll ask the residents and, you know, we'll do our best, you know. You know, preserving the past is really important, and a town with some really interesting history like Rockport has, but we have to make sure we have a good future too, and we have to be able to afford it. So, everything in due time, but
Yeah, and
that balance is
I take your
important.
point, obviously, you and Michelle and others in terms of the history of the Opera House, but really it's about a community gathering place going forward. I mean,
That's
that New
right.
Year's Eve dance, you know, that we all know, there's just been some great stuff recently happening there, and of course, the Bay Chamber Music, I mean, the things that we're able to benefit from in this town because of that Opera House.
That's right.
But I totally understand the dilemmas.
All right. Any comments, any other questions for John or Megan about Opera House? All right. Select Board liaison reports. Does anyone have anything that they're dying to provide?
I don't think there's anything critical. I mean,
No.
Orion is,
Okay.
we've got Orion's ORC stuff. EDC's been working on good things, but excited about the Lesher Family
Yes.
Foundation
very
proposal.
exciting.
Parks working on getting ready for the spring.
Okay.
I think our EMS meeting, I think, is the 26th
April.
of April, I think.
Yep.
So nothing new on that front.
I think that'll be in Lincolnville. Does that sound right?
I think so,
I think
yes.
so, yeah.
Weren't they going to provide refreshments?
I hope so. I
Yeah.
believe
I think
so.
it was filet and lobster.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what I heard.
Right.
Dave
No,
Kinney
you're
said-
right.
Put that
Dave
on the
Kinney
record.
said
Here
lobster and,
I think that's what it was. It was surf and turf, I think.
The new one.
Lobster bake.
that's right.
Biggest turnout.
Catered by McLaughlin's or something.
All right, anything else? All right, with that, we will move to wastewater, and we have a couple of items on our wastewater. So I need a motion to move us into wastewater commissioners.
I move we exit general session and move into wastewater commissioners.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I don't know.
I was like, is he not gonna raise his hand? All right, the first item we have is the Magundacook Campground. So I know we talked about this a couple meetings ago. There's been some additional research done on that, so John, Orion, whoever wants to bring us up to speed.
Orion wrote the memo, so
Okay.
I'll immediately hand off to him.
Okay.
Sounds good. So, yeah, Maguntacook Campground, they mentioned to you that there was that the cost to tie in was prohibitive per the structure that we have. So I've done research in the past whenever there was a subdivision that was coming in. I was curious how much we were losing by not having them tie in and to see if like that was too expensive. And at that time, it wasn't too expensive in comparison to what other municipalities were charging. So with this recent statement, I've looked into it again and found that we're even probably more equitable in comparison to other municipalities and what we would charge to tie in per equivalent user. And I put into some comparisons, like Rockland, they charge $2,400 per equivalent user, and Damascotta charges $2,000 per equivalent user. So with that, I would I would say that we're fair with our tie-in fee.
So the fee is 27,000.
That would be, they have 27 equivalent users if they stay with
Okay,
the current
27,
structure
that was
right
my
now.
question. Okay, so 20, their usage would be 27 equivalent users, which would equate to $27,000.
To
Okay.
tie in, correct.
To tie in, okay. Versus Rockland, which would be 2,400,
Per equivalent-
Damascotta, 2,000, okay.
Per equivalent user,
Per-
so
per equivalent
right.
user, correct.
double.
And if you were to put that into context to a new septic system, in talking with our code enforcement officer, he thinks on the low end, he's looking at $45,000 to who knows where.
And the pumping that's
Cost.
required
And then the pumping
with
that's
that
required.
on a fairly frequent basis, I would think in the summer especially.
And by having this campground tie-in, it not only relieves the space that's currently used by the septic system, so they can utilize their space more for future campgrounds, future RV sites.
And is there any issue over how you calculate number of equivalent users for a campground?
No, the structure is set by the state. There's a table. We just plug in the numbers and calculate the number of equivalent users based off of that.
Okay.
And that, right now, is again, based on the current structure. So I know they want to grow, I know they want to expand, so if they get in now, then it's just 27,000 to tie in.
So if they expanded, let's say they use that space and they go to 40 equivalent users, just for example, they would not have to pay, they would pay usage, obviously, but they
Usage,
wouldn't
and
pay
then they would
hookup
pay-
for the
they'd pay
additional.
the debt service equivalent for all of that in the future, but the tie-in is just
But the
based off of
tie-in
today.
just on, based on today.
Correct.
And then you're offering the opportunity for them to pay that $27,000 over the course
That's a
of year.
recommendation to you.
Is it-
I mean, if they were to.
If that's the
that's-
issue, is that the
that's the
cash
issue, they
flow
can't pay
is-
right now, then, I would distribute that over whatever is equitable to y'all. I don't know how you would structure that for the wastewater commissioners, but I wouldn't do it a lengthy period of time, because then that's I mean, from an investment standpoint, it makes sense.
So I
but-
don't know whether this is, leave it to me, but the appropriate place to ask the question, but what type of savings will the applicant see by not having to do his normal pump outs of his system?
Well, there's obviously the care and maintenance of their own septic system. I don't know what the current status of the current septic system is, and per our ordinance, if it's failing, then they're required.
I'm just saying,
But-
if they're gonna save $13,000 by not having to pump it out in the run of a year, whatever that number is, so they're gonna be net.
After 2
No,
years, they're
I
done.
don't know.
Right.
I don't know what
So,
they currently would have to
I
pay.
guess that's where I was going, is I'm trying to understand what their annual costs is for that maintenance of their current system. Just a thought.
Well, do we know? I mean, I think, is someone here about that?
Our system is
Oh.
not failing, so we're not looking
Okay.
to replace anything, but it's nowhere near 27,000.
No, and I understand that, but I mean,
I don't have the exact number.
is it
Yeah.
10 or under, or 10 to 15, or?
Because I'm new at the position, I don't know the exact numbers, but my guess is, looking at it from past properties I've taken care of, we're not even close to 10 a year. Unless something catastrophic.
That's to pump out,
It's just for general maintenance and pumping out.
so less than
Yeah.
10,000 per
Yeah.
year, okay.
I'm ballparking again.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Sure.
Well, I appreciate the work, Orion. I mean, it seems like we have to be fair to all our users and have our policies, and to have compared it with surrounding communities.
Mhm.
Looks like we're not out of line.
No, we're not.
So do we have to I'm assuming we have to motion this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Should we
I'm not sure what that motion
would
is.
we reject the appeal?
Deny.
Deny the
Or
appeal?
deny the appeal, yeah.
I move that we deny the appeal of McGonagall Campground for a reduction in the established tie-in fee. And offer the opportunity, if McGonagall Campground is interested, to discuss payment of the $27,000 over the course of 1 year.
Second, for the purpose of conversations, I guess, and that was where I was going to
Yep.
try to find out what the current costs are, and figuring whether, if it were 9,000, that would be 3 years it would have been paid for, but I'm just trying to find a way that we can work and not put so much burden on the applicant. Because this isn't just here, I mean, this potentially will come up on Route 90 if we get out that way, so we have to think along those lines as well. So I guess that was part of my thing, is I'd be willing to go longer than a year, if that's something that would certainly help the applicant, and still get where we want to be and where they would probably prefer to be.
I mean, we're setting precedent, no matter how we do it.
Right.
Just from like a budgetary standpoint, if that's how you only wanna consider it, it's much better to have it over a period of time than $27,000 of revenue one year and then have to come up with $27,000 worth of revenue in another year. It's just something to think about in how you develop your budget, cause that's gonna be revenue, that's gonna be a one-time revenue, not something that's
So,
reoccurring.
so 2 years would be better than splitting it up.
You'd rather see it split up over 2 years rather than 1 year? So-
For any period of time, I mean, obviously half of 27,000 is easier to make up in a year than all of it, or even if you went longer than that.
Because on the wastewater budget, then you're gonna have this little blip,
Yeah.
Right.
and then you're gonna,
Then
and
the
you're
next
gonna
year-
And the next year, you're
recalculate your
not gonna
rates,
have
and then
it, right.
You're not gonna have it, and you're gonna have to ignore it or figure out some way to smooth it. So if you did it over 2 years, you're talking, what, $1,100 a month or so? 27,
Ryan, in the memo, it says, Megan suggests that perhaps we split the connection fee and the debt service fee as a way to help split the things. What would that look like?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Split the connection fee and the debt service fee.
As a way to help split these things.
So,
That's what was in the
Well,
thing that was given to me.
basically what I was getting at is if you break up the initial tie-in fee over a period of time.
Okay,
Then you're not having that 1 year where you're realizing $27,000 in revenue.
and the next year you'll be down, right.
$27,000.
so,
Okay.
you know, in going back to trying to work with the applicant, if you were paying $9,000 a year to have your current system maintained, it wouldn't be any difference to you out of pocket if you went 3 years, because you're still paying the same amount of money. So you don't have to budget for the 27. Does that make any sense to anybody? I mean,
Yeah,
so
no,
I'm
yeah,
just
no,
saying, you
yeah, I
put
know
it
what you
out
mean.
3 years,
Megan
you're,
thinks that's better for us.
you're still being able to get where we all want to be,
Right.
and it's
Because
not.
to your
and-
point,
It's not
and I
changing
don't know what
the
the,
budget.
I don't know what the number is, but to your point, if they're paying 9,000 now,
Whatever that.
pay 9,000 over 3 years, and you're hooked into the system, and you're paying 9,000 to someone one way or another.
Right.
is
You're
what
either
you're
paying
saying.
it to them or
Right.
us, they get hooked up, they don't have to
Right.
do their yearly pump outs.
Right. Well, I think Megan, I mean, I think that, John, you tell me if I'm right, that can come down to you guys making that decision on the a payment
Maybe we
plan,
could just
right?
leave that
Yep.
possibility open to be discussed.
I mean, it would be best if we created a policy or changed the sewer rules so that we were.
We should, right?
We could equitably say whether it's, and someone of some size or equivalent users over
X gets.
20,
yeah.
you know, we can split that over a 3-year period, so that, you know, and just using the 9,000 as a.
Right,
And that's the difficult thing for those, that we have nothing in our current wastewater
Right.
policy that allows us.
that allows that,
And this
right.
is moderately unusual, because we only have 2 campgrounds,
Exactly,
so.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, so the motion. as
So the
it
motion
sits
that's
right
on the
now-
table is to deny the appeal of the Magundacook campground for the tie-in fee.
Yep, okay.
And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of that? All against?
I'm not going either way.
You're gonna abstain? Okay.
Do,
Will you share? Is it appropriate to ask? And Is it appropriate to?
I guess where I'm going now, should we instruct the manager to work
Yeah.
with the applicant to finalize a deal that is in the best interest for both
Yes.
parties?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
Yes, no, I don't
No,
know.
I'm trying to find a way to
I'm
word it.
gonna just put it
that-
on the notes to work with applicant to determine payment plan that is,
And I,
So, is that a motion, Mark?
let me think
Do we
about
need a
that.
motion for that?
I just made a note, but,
Okay.
I think it'd be a
we
good
need
idea.
motion So he understands.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea if we could.
okay, so someone wanna make a motion for,
I think Mark did.
Go, I was gonna say, go ahead. I would move that we have the manager work with the applicant,
Yeah.
Kennecott Campground, to come up with a plan for equal payments over 3 years. That would,
And establish a policy.
and establish a policy that would
That would
help us
govern.
in the future.
Yep.
In the governance of such a predicament.
Does that work?
Yeah, works with me.
okay, hold on,
Second.
hold on,
And I don't.
hold on.
And I don't know what your yearly numbers are for
Okay.
your maintenance, but
I can help you out a little bit. I really appreciate you guys helping, working with us and doing all that stuff.
Well, it's-
Again, like I said before, though, it's not the number that I have to pay in a year, it's the number that I have to pay in general.
Yeah.
The equivalent users calculations is for a residential, household, and not necessarily for the purposes that we're using it for. I understand you guys are making policy here, and this is kind of gray area, uncharted waters, and I've been told a few times that by me getting what I've been asking for, I'm opening the floodgates for various departments, for people also asking for, I don't know if I'd call it a discount, but another reassessment of what it takes to tie in. So I understand you guys are up against that as well. And I do appreciate the time and effort everyone's put in. It's not necessarily the time, again, it's the actual number, time.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second to work with the applicant to determine payment plan for equal payments over 3 years and establish policy and governance. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay. All right,
Sounds good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item we have is an addition to the wastewater commissioner's agenda,
Yep.
which will be as a result of our executive session that we conducted right before this meeting. So,
Should I
yeah, I mean,
just go with the
I
motion
think
and then we
we'll
can
just go
discuss?
with the,
Go with the
we'll just
motion.
go with the motion.
I move we authorize the town to pay now understood undisputed amounts to Camden for sewer bills using a user rate up to 7.4%.
Second.
Okay. Discussion on that. All right, all in favor? All in favor. Okay. With that, I need a motion to exit wastewater commission.
Move we exit wastewater session.
second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right,
I move
was
we-
that it?
I move we adjourn if I look at the agenda
All
right.
right, Denise, move to adjourn.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
We didn't have a dance party yet.
I know.
We don't have a floor for it.
Motor Booty will be here. Okay. Denise, I need.
Soon enough.
Right there.
Okay.